Oh, kill the music. Thank you. Today's photo tutorial is going to be about the Urban Ninja photo concept. I'll be going over how to go from the initial image, the initial sketch, to the final imaginary Photoshop production. Now, the actual concept for the Urban Ninja, the dramatic pose, is coming from comic books. Comic books like The Watchmen, for example. You can see we're trying to communicate dramatic action in like 1 or 2 frames. This was translated very well to the screen in the movie 300. Very good comic book adaptation. You see here at the top, you have Stelios, who's just killed a person, and he's in a very defensive position about to be killed himself. Notice the angles between his legs and his arm and his spear. His spear is, of course, just an extension of his intention to kill people. The thing to understand is that you have these very dramatic, very hard angles between the different components of the body, such as the legs and the arms and the weapon. When you want to use this in the photo, you also see this in the bottom where Leonidas is about to whip his spear around and gouge someone's head off with his spear. You look at Rorschach standing at what's left of the comedian's window. Notice his legs. Notice the lines between his legs and his torso and the top of his head, which actually this looks like the kanji for the Shibuya train station in Tokyo, but it can also be interpreted as a way to show dramatic action in a static image. This is one of the unprocessed photos from the photo shoot, and a few key elements of the Urban Ninja are the trench coat, we have a katana, we have very big Doc Marten boots which sort of form a foundation to the ground. Then we have nice form-fitted pants that kind of maintain the form of the person. But the most important thing here is the pose. Look at the lines of the arm holding the katana. It's parallel to the leg. This is connected to the ground. On the opposite side, we have the scabbard forming a 90-degree angle to the katana arm. And then you have the sense of impending action just out of the frame of the image, which is what really defines the drama. It defines the idea that this is an action image. We do this also in some of the other poses from this series. Where we go back, we think about what we know from comic books in 300, we form the same type of angles between the legs and the torso and the katana on the arm. Now, when we talk about the lighting for this image, it's very simple. 3 lights. We have a Sunpack 120J is shooting from behind. We got a softbox with a 383 and another Sunpack 383 in an Orbis ring flash adapter. So the backlight, the 120J, it's lighting the background a little bit, and it's also creating a very hard shadow as it hits the subject. Now the front is going to need to be filled in a little bit so we get detail on the subject. And then also the Orbis ring flash is going to be used to sort of define the harder shadows just a little bit. The coat is very reflective, so you get very nice shadows from it. Alright, now we move on to post-processing. I'm going to open up one of my images. This is one of my favorite images from the shoot. First thing I do is duplicate the layer. And now I'm going to do some smart sharpening to this layer which I just duplicated. And if I zoom in just a little bit, you can see the detail on the t-shirt. I'm wearing a Dandy Warhols t-shirt from a concert I went to in Zurich. And you can see how this brings out the definition of the lettering of that shirt, but also, you know, the hardness of the jacket. Then I do a black and white layer, and I do a multiply blending mode on this, because when you create a black and white layer, you give yourself a lot of latitude to manipulate the shadows of the image, and especially in an image like this, where I shot it to have hard shadows. If you see, if I go between a normal color layer or back to the multiply, and then add a few levels and curves adjustments, I'm really able to darken the parts of the images I want to darken, but then keep the other parts lighter. I'll then add a texture layer. I'll just show you, if we go through a few different blending modes like an overlay or a soft light, you can really change the color which this texture is imparting onto your subject. And generally I'm going to, right, this is obviously not working because you're completely overshadowing the ninja. And what I generally end up doing is doing a soft light or an overlay blending mode, which allows the texture to really meld with the background and with the subject. In this case, I use 2 texture layers. You can see this one's a very hard concrete layer, but if you blend it correctly, where it's just a subtle addition to the image, and there's really no formula to doing it this way, it's just you do what you like. And what I like to do is to add a final color layer at the end to sort of define the overall mood of whatever it was I was trying to convey when I thought about this in my head. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do for the photoshopping of this image. I'll then go back to Adobe Lightroom. And now that I have this final post-processed image in Adobe Lightroom, you see the original image. You can see now the fully processed image that I just showed you in Photoshop. And I go back to Lightroom because it gives me the ability to work a little bit, fine-tuning the shadows, fine-tuning the exposure, adding some vignetting to the image, to darken or lighten the corners as I like. And generally, I like to darken the corners. That's just what I do, how I see the world. And once we finish that up, I might add a little bit of sharpening and then just export it directly to Flickr, export it for printing or whatever I want to use this image for. So that's basically all we have for post-processing, manipulating colors and shadows in Photoshop, then exporting in Lightroom. So now you know how to go from a simple sketch to an Urban Ninja image. That's the end, my friend. Cue the music.